Welcome, beautiful people, to Petrify the Patriarchy. I'm your guide, Joe B. If you're ready to unearth the subtle ways patriarchal culture has shaped your world and uncover the hidden power within your own shadow, you're in the right place. Here we don't just speak truth to power, we wield it, turning stagnant energies to stone so that your authentic, liberated self can truly flourish. Let the unlearning begin. Hello, visionaries. I am Joe B., your guide here at Petrify the Patriarchy. This is my third or fourth time trying to record. I was going to try with my dogs in the room, and it clearly was not working. So now that they are safely stored away in their crates, we'll see if we can get through this without too much background noise. They're probably going to fuss in the other room, but anyway, I'm finally feeling settled enough to sit down and really focus on this learning adventure that I've started, and I'm in my space that's kind of ever evolving, but my schedule has started to kind of settle, and I had a conversation with a fellow spiritual guide on this journey this week, and was reminded that scheduling is intentional, and I really needed to hear that particular phrase so that I could really start to nuance my day out so that I feel like I'm living my best life through that intentional spirit, whether it's producing a podcast, whether it's putting a job application out there, whether it's organizing my space, whatever it might be. Instead of just sitting there waiting for the spark to hit, I'm intentionally setting it up in my schedule so that I am doing the thing. But I don't want to get caught up too much in doing the thing, the masculine energy, right? Because that's where we tend to get lost. And so that leads me into the idea for today, which is dismantling the human capital trap. So I really want to start with my research foundation, and also tie that into if we are going to actually petrify the patriarchy, we have to recognize that we are not an asset. Our physical self is not an asset in the way that we capitalize everything, right? In patriarchal sociology, there is this big theory, this concept called the human capital theory. And what it does is it suggests that your value is essentially the sum of your skills. And that's where we get the boss babe, the strong woman, the, Rosie the Riveter, right? That resilience piece that comes together. And it is your potential for future productivity, and it treats you like stock on the market. And in patriarchy, oftentimes women and women's bodies specifically are treated as if we're an assembly line for producing children and maintaining a clean existence and making sure the men are fed, right? We are an asset in what we can provide for the men in our society. And so my research into worth and value shows that it's not just this boring economic theory, that it is a very predatory psychological state of mind that we exist in, whether we know it or not. It is very underlying. It is the very bias air we breathe, right? And in this system, you don't have value. You are utility, right? And when you are a utility, the system stops seeing you as a human being and starts seeing you more as an inventory item, that thing on the Excel spreadsheet, right? And this is where the so-called inner landlord gets to create that spreadsheet or ledger, if you will. And so when we talk about the concept of Wetiko, remember that's the cannibalistic mind virus. I don't know if you can hear the wind in the background. It's very windy today. That cannibalistic mind virus turns the research into a revolution. And Watiko is the force that looks at a living, breathing woman and sees resources to be extracted. And it's why in my teaching career, I was praised for being a martyr. And the educational system infected by Watiko doesn't want healthy teachers. It wants liquidated teachers. It wants us empty so we can continue to spread that virus, right? So it wants you to pour every ounce of yourself, your DNA, your marrow into the classroom until there's nothing left. And if you're in any kind of caregiving position, nursing, daycare, elder care, anything that has to do with that, you give until there's absolutely nothing left. And we've been taught to call, in teacher world anyway, we've been taught to call this professionalism or dedication. And my research calls it systemic parasitism, excuse me. The patriarchy identifies your empathy and strong woman attitude, right? That capacity, and labels it as capital. And then it spends it until you're bankrupt. And by bankrupt, I literally mean so broken or so exhausted that, waking up out of bed is next to impossible. And so here's the sabotage, right? If we get educational about your exhaustion, and I'm going to use air quotes here. If you're not watching me on the YouTube, I'm using air quotes. Exhaustion. And I've often labeled it personally myself a DNA level exhaustion, meaning to impart this idea that it's just bigger than I'm tired, that a nap is going to fix this. It's in my bones, tired. And when I hit the wall with both my Hashimoto's and then, of course, being in perimenopause, which lasts for years and years, but then also the systemic harm of dealing with sexual harassment and being told, nah, it's not a thing, right? All those pieces combined really just kind of came to an intersection, and that was my, I can't do this anymore, period, after every single word. And at first it was a real, I'm failing, or I need to just check out and sleep for as long as possible. But in looking at the data now and looking at the data, I realized I was becoming unusable to the system. So Watiko cannot feed on a host that refuses to produce. Me taking time off, me refusing to participate, me saying I'm checking out, I'm not producing for the system. And that's when the system came for me, right? So if you identify as the boss babe, the strong woman, the Rosie the Riveter type, right? And you find yourself unable to do all the masculine doing pieces anymore, it's not that you've lost your value. And I need you to hear this. If you're unable to do the masculine doing, that energetic component, you haven't lost your value. What you have done is successfully crashed your own market. And by becoming unproductive, and I'm going to use air quotes there too, unproductive, in the eyes of patriarchy, you are actually performing an act of biological sabotage. And you are taking yourself off the shelf. You're moving from inventory to the system to individual, you, authenticity, self, right? So the antidote is a radical return to being. And this is where research is clear again. The only way to break the cycle of that conditional worth is to move from utility to sovereignty, self-sovereignty. And in my teaching, days, I had 30 minutes at the beginning of the day where I was allowed to have that ritual, that sacred time, because it made me, the asset, perform better. And I was able to do that because I could set up the day with my students to also understand the system so they would perform better within the system we had designed in my classroom. Right? Which inevitably is, Wetiko telling us all, you've got to do this thing in order to get to some place. The cog in the wheel, right? But that's not the direction I wanted to go today, just a caveat. But the rituals I'm doing now, the ones where I touch the trees or I sit in my own silence for no reason at all. I read a book, I do some art, I create, I organize spaces because that helps me think better, right? That is all theft in a good way, because I'm stealing my life back from this virus that tells me I'm constantly supposed to be doing. We have to stop trying to fix, I'm doing air quotes again, a lot of air quotes today. We have to stop trying to fix our fatigue so we can get back to being useful. And I just want to stop here for a second and say, yeah, of course, go to the doctor, make sure your iron levels are good, make sure you're getting enough sleep, make sure you're eating well, right? Do the things that, we know make us a healthy person without being so overwhelmed. But also understand that you can be doing those things that are just right and still feel that fatigue. And that might be more of a spiritual fatigue, that soul tired fatigue, that DNA level fatigue that I talked about, right? That might be what you're dealing with if everything else is taken care of. And when you find yourself in that spot, instead, use the fatigue as that shield where we realize that the boss babe, strong woman was just a role that we had to play so that the landlord made us keep paying rent to our own life, right? What I want to do is take us on a self-audit of human liquidation, if you will. And I really want you to answer these questions honestly. I'll put these in the show notes. Excuse me. I'll put these in the show notes so that you don't have to, busily scribe them down now. But what I really want you to do is answer honestly. And the first response is likely the correct one, right? The one that makes the most sense. And I want you to use your gut, right? Your intuition. So if you feel a gut tense or that little ripple or sting, that's your intuition flagging that Wetiko connection. All right. So, question is, do the people in my life, that could be bosses, partners, family members, friends, primarily praise me for who I am or what I provide? If your value in a relationship or a job is tied to your resilience, your boss babe, your strong woman capabilities, or your emotional labor, you are being treated as utility. So really think about that. Are you being treated for who you are or what you provide? It might be a hard one to come to a conclusion on, right? So sovereignty is being able to is being valuable even when you're useless to the system. The system just wants to chew you up and spit you out. It does not care about your human existence, right? But you are still a person. You are still sovereign, even if you're not a part of that. If the thought of being useless terrifies you, that's likely that societal virus, the Wetiko virus, that has infected how you see your worth. That's patriarchy speaking to you directly. Right? Now, I want you to just take a second and separate your spiritual worth versus your checking account worth. Right? Those are two completely separate things. Yes, we have to have money to survive the existence that is United Statesian existence. And we can still draw some very strong boundaries as to how much time I'm giving to this thing called my job and how much time I'm giving to myself, right? So I just want to make sure I'm very clear about that. This isn't a go quit your job and don't have one and live rent free. Well, that'd be really nice, right? we all have to have a roof over our heads. We all need to be safe from the horrible, wind that's out there happening around me today. But the reality is we need that. And so make sure that your job, your career is not sucking your soul completely empty, and that you are reviving the sovereign self outside of your job. I hope that makes sense. Okay, question number 2. Is my physical exhaustion the only thing that allows me to stop working? Think about, as an educator, as a teacher, how many times I went to school deathly ill because it was easier to go to work sick than it was to call in sick, make sub plans, and come in to the building at the crack of dawn before anybody else was there and set up for a person who was going to take over for the day or two, right? It made more sense to go to work sick. When your body is telling you something, is that the only time that you allow yourself to stop working? Or do you take time because you just know you need it? You need those positive mental health breaks to take a trip with your bestie, or just have a staycation or a long weekend, right? Do it when you're healthy, not when you're sick. So the audit on this is, do you wait for that migraine, the flu, COVID, whatever it might be, or a complete mental breakdown even, before you give yourself that permission to rest? I think that's a lot of what women do. We don't feel like we can take a break unless our body is like, fuck you, I'm out. Our system has not allowed us to set up time and space to go, you know what, I just need a break. I'm healthy right now and the timing's great. I'm going to take 3 days off from work this week and go to Vegas with my girls. We're going to sleep in. We're going to order all the room service. I'm going to get drunk at least one night, right? Like, do you give yourself permission to do that? This is liquidated. This is liquidated capital. The system will spend your health. The system will spend your health until you are bankrupt. If rest is a recovery period because you were sick, rather than a sovereign right, you are still treating your body like a machine in a shop. It's so much easier said than done. I get it. But we all collectively need to make this shift to sovereign right to rest, to rejuvenate, to recuperate, to be, versus the cog in the wheel of the patriarchal system. Okay. Question 3. Do I feel a sense of unearned guilt when I sit in a clean room or enjoy a sunny afternoon without a productive reason? I see this in my mom, in the older generations, where sitting still is not an option. Constantly cleaning something, constantly organizing something, very rarely taking a rest. So the audit here is when you are being instead of doing, right? The feminine energy instead of the masculine energy. Do you hear a voice telling you that you haven't earned that moment? The second I lay down on the couch, I get my mom's voice in my ear. But you still have the kitchen to clean. But you didn't do dishes last night. But why isn't the table wiped down, right? That's my mom in my head telling me to keep doing instead of being. Do you do that? Do you have that person that's whispering in your ear? Get up, do the thing. You haven't earned it yet. This is that internalized rent that we talk about. That's your inner landlord who's auditing your minutes. And if you feel you must pay for your existence with that to-do list, you are living as a tenant in your own life. That's a hard one to swallow. It's a hard one to swallow. I get it. I argue with that one all the time. It's socialized in us. This is a thing that we do. And it's more expected of women than it is of men. Because we have all of the emotional labor and the housekeeping. And that's by and large our problem to deal with. And so taking a rest is not something that we're afforded. Question 4. Is my empathy being used as a resource that others feel entitled to? I'm going to say that again for the teachers in the room. Is my empathy being used as a resource that others feel entitled to? I'm just going to be honest and say that's the entire educational system. This is why teachers have burnout. This is why teachers leave teaching at such high rates. We are used because we care. So in your career, again, especially if you're a teacher or caregiver type, were you expected to self-sacrifice for the greater good while receiving no systemic support in return? It's a hard question to answer again. And this is the human capital extraction. So the mind virus, Wetiko, loves a noble calling because it makes the cannibalism look like service. If you feel like a saint or a martyr, check to see if you're actually just a battery for the system. That you can be changed out, tossed. I don't love that thought either. But here we are. Patriarchy relies on a specific cycle to keep the boss babe, strong woman, right, producing until she's absolutely just completely spent. And I'm working on a diagram. I hope I can get it done tonight and throw it in here with it. If not, I'll make sure to upload it at another time. But I'm working on a diagram that shows that cycle. All right. So if this audit revealed that you're currently being liquidated, please don't panic. As with anything, that realization is the first step of evicting that voice, your inner landlord. And your fatigue isn't a sign that you're broken or a broken asset to the system. It's a sign that your soul is finally refusing to be for sale. And as scary as that might sound, it's also very, very freeing. I hope that adds a little bit of relief to the weight that you're carrying on your shoulders. Your next step is to choose something from your checklist, your do list. Choose one thing, something that makes you feel like a utility to the system, and intentionally sabotage it. Not by being mean, right? But by simply not doing it. And observe if any ick factor arises. Observe that. Sit in it. Be in that discomfort. That discomfort is the virus starving. We oftentimes look at discomfort and the uncomfortable feelings as a way to maintain status quo. When really the more time we spend in discomfort, the more we're dismantling the system. Okay, I'm going to stop there for today. If you or your organization needs support in dismantling and sitting in that discomfort, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can find me at moveandmaxim.com. I am Joe B. I am signing out. Until next time. Bye all.